Hey, church, must say 2020 was really a different year than I anticipated. You know, my first year back really took off 2020. We had a whole lot of momentum. We had a lot of things going for us, numbers as far as church attendance, salvations, prodigals returning home. We hit such a stride in the first 3 or 4 months, and then all of a sudden, the word that we all are now not wanting to say anymore, COVID, hit. And it hit hard. COVID hit, and we had so many unknowns. A place that the church, not just this church, but the church, has never seen before. A national, not even just a national, but a worldwide pandemic has hit. And now how do we navigate through this thing, and where do we go from here? And there were so many fears. There were so many, again, unknowns, just not knowing what to do, not knowing what this disease, this COVID was going to do. Honestly, I can tell you that in March, when it first hit, I thought, no way this thing's going to blow up. No way this thing's going to be anything, you know, what we're making it. And here we are in December, and we're still talking about COVID, and we're still looking at numbers way up, still trying to navigate through a place that we've never been. But I want to come on tonight and just tell you guys, this church, you were resilient. I'm so proud to be your pastor. I'm so proud of what we accomplished in 2020 through a worldwide pandemic, through uncharted waters. You know, there's a lot of things that went wrong in 2020. And just last week, I had a meeting with our pastor's advisory committee, and we were sitting and we were talking, and I shared with them how I was just so pleased in our church. You know, many churches right now are struggling. They've shut down. They've never reopened, and just struggling through this pandemic, not knowing what to do, trying to do the right thing for their church, and people not returning. And there was a statistic that hit a couple weeks ago, and I shared it with them, and it was that 40 to 60% of churchgoers have not returned back to their church yet. And I am so thankful that we are above that in our trend. You know, we've been basically right at 100 over the last several weeks. We were down a little bit this Sunday with snow, and then also I know a lot of people had family in, things like that for the Christmas break. But we have had a great year considering COVID. And, you know, I done an evaluation. There was a paper that I had printed off from a pastor, and he asked some questions, and he asked us to review the year 2020. And one of the questions he asked was, what accomplishment are you most proud of in 2020? And there's a lot. There really is. There's a lot of things that we've done in 2020 that I'm very proud of as a pastor, but the accomplishment that I'm most proud of is the fact that we had 36 decisions for Jesus Christ. Even through a worldwide pandemic, we had 36 salvations, 36 decisions for Jesus Christ to come and live inside of hearts of men and women and change their lives. And out of those 36, 14 of those even went on to take the next step of being baptized. So that was a pleasure. You know, then they asked the question, what results have been the most frustrating with COVID in 2020? And it still revolves around those 36 decisions for Christ. The frustrating thing is a lot of those have not came back to church. A lot of those people that rededicated their lives or gave their lives to Christ for the first time, they've not come back to church, and we've not been able to disciple them. COVID hit, and we just were not allowed to gather for a few weeks, and during that process we lost a lot of those 36 people. So again, he asked what was the most painful thing about 2020, and it has to be the fact that, you know, a lot of those 36 have not come back to church, and we're praying that they will. You know, one of the things that I have, a great lesson that I have learned in 2020 is don't always expect the church to be open. We have to find ways to navigate around crisis, and I'm so thankful for this church. You followed us through uncharted waters. We had church on as David put in the video. We've had church in the parking lot. We've had church online. We've come back inside the church. We've tried to do so many different things that, again, we didn't know. But I'm thankful for people like David Bowling. I'm thankful for a praise team and musicians who were very flexible and gave their time and their giftings and their talents to allow us to be able to worship online, worship in the parking lot. I don't think a lot of people realize what all went into making parking lot services effective and good. There was a lot of, getting ready, a lot of tearing down, and it was just, it was fun. I loved being outside. We had opportunities that we would have never had inside. I mean, what chance would there have been for our neighbor to walk 100 yards across the parking or across the grassy field to come to Jesus Christ if we weren't outside singing the praises of Jesus Christ? So there, but one thing that 2020 has taught me is, don't just assume that there's going to be church next Sunday in the building. What do you think you'll remember the most about 2020? Again, COVID has dominated the cycle, and I think that's what we'll most remember about 2020 is the frustrations of COVID. But one thing that as I reflect and look back at 2020, one of the things that I believe that I'll remember also is not just the frustrations of COVID, but you as a church. I will always remember your faithfulness in giving and attending. This church has been amazing through this pandemic. You have been some of the most generous givers, if not the best givers, I've ever seen through this. And not only that, but even in your attendance, our attendance, it's been low at times, but for the most part, we've held her on, and we've done very well. So I'm thankful to you all for that. But that's one of the things that I will remember most about 2020 is your faithfulness in your giving and your faithfulness in your attending church. Looking forward to 2021 and moving into what I pray and believe is going to be a season. I believe that, I've quoted this before and I've said it, but, I go all the way back to the very beginning of the Bible when Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers and then went to the pit and then was in prison and, all the trials and circumstances. But when he looked at his brothers, he said, what the enemy meant for evil, God has turned around for my good. And I believe the very same thing is going to happen with what has happened in 2020. But there's a few goals that I have in the year of 2021. And the first of those is to raise up leaders in our church. I want to begin to develop some strong leadership in our church. We've already got some, but there's some people that I look at and I see they have some very strong leadership abilities, and I want to begin to train them and put them in leadership positions in our church. 2021, I want to turn us into an elders-led church. So I'm wanting to raise up and train some elders to be elders of our church. And then also one of the biggest things that 2021 needs to bring to this church, and it's one of my biggest goals for 2021, is that we have a strong and vibrant kids church. We have to have that church. Prior to COVID, we were, had a meeting and we were very excited. We were ready to launch a lot of different things. People were signing up to teach, and now we're struggling again to find teachers. We're struggling to have children's workers show up and teach and do, those things. And we have to have that if we're going to be a vibrant church in 2021. One of the questions he asked was also if I had as much money as I needed in 2021 to do something that's laid in, that's inside of my heart, what would I do? And I believe one of the greatest needs of our church is to build a family life center over in this bottom. I don't believe God allowed us to purchase that just to sit over there and us cut grass and shoot guns and do nothing else with that piece of property. I truly believe that God has given us that piece of property to do something amazing with, and I would love to build a family life center in that that area. And what I mean by that is I'd love to have a gymnasium. I'd love to have a full commercial kitchen. I would love to have a place that we could set down cots and allow homeless people to have a warm place to sleep and lay their head down at night if they're struggling to find that. I'd like to have a place to store food and clothing so we could be able to minister to the needs of our community. So if I had enough money to do that in 2021, that's where my heart is. I would love for us to be able to build that Family Life Center. I would love to have, again, a food pantry. I would love to have clothing closet. I'd love to have a place, a room in there where Trina and some of these could be able to do addiction crisis, addiction counseling, things like that. There's so many things that we could do with the Family Life Center. So that's one of the things that I would love to do in 2021 if we had the money to do so. So if I could solve one problem for 2021, what would that problem be? I just mentioned it, children's church. I think it's a must for us as a church moving forward. If we're going to grow and see strong families, we have to have a strong children's church. So, and at the end of 2021, what would success look like to me as a pastor? At the end of 2020, I would base success on the fact that we as a church, we have grown in numbers in our services 10%. I would love to win 2 to 3 families this year that are solid and have an average growth this year of 10%. I would love to have a great follow-up in place that when we have visitors, first-time visitors, things like that, I really want to make sure that we hit them hard and thank them for coming and give them gifts and send them emails and give cards, things of that sort. The other thing that really is vital and very important for us in 2021 is that we have a next steps or a growth track process. Again, we had 36 decisions for Jesus Christ in 2020, but we were not able to disciple them for various reasons. One, we didn't even have a discipleship process in place. And then 2, COVID hit and it kind of hurt us with that discipleship process. So in this year, I would love to have a next steps growth track to where when someone gets saved, they'll be able to, for a couple weeks, go and just be able to take the next steps and us be able to disciple them into where to go from this moment. So, and then the last thing that I believe that would cause me to believe that 2021 would be a success is the fact that we have a solid kids ministry at the end of the year. So, you know, you watch the video, you know, that's a lot of things have happened. You know, this year, I think some things have happened that's even went unsaid. I don't believe people realize how many people we have fed out of just the little food pantry that we have. There was weeks that Belinda and we were constantly making bags and boxes and giving out food, and it's been steady throughout the year, but we have given out quite a bit of food. Just the other day, Talina had the reverse Advent out front, and Vicky and her and Belinda took a lot of stuff over to the women's shelter. So we've done a lot of benevolence. We gave out a lot of food. We've given money to people. We've paid for hotel rooms. I mean, so many things this year that we've done that I believe that God is pleased in. But financially, you saw the statistics. I'm so thankful that at the end of 2020, you are looking at a church that is $24,000 in the black. I'm so thankful for that. And we're $24,000 in the black, and that's with us paying off a church van. So now we have 2 church vans that belong to the church with no loans. We paid cash for a brand new basketball court for our kids that has already been used like crazy, and I'm so thankful for that. But we paid $7,500 for that, and that is being used. We had renovations early in the year for our fellowship hall. We've had $10,000 driveway fixed. We purchased a tractor to maintain our property. We ordered David some media updates for our computers. We updated all those for the media, for online services, things like that. But we have done so much this year. But I'm so thankful, church, that we've $24,000 in the black. And the most important statistic of all, 36 decisions for Jesus Christ. So somewhere this year we have planted seed in people's heart, and I'm praying that God will send those back plus 36 plus more in 2021. Thank you for an amazing year, not the year that I anticipated coming back to, but I still believe that 2020 was a great success. And COVID, we rebuke you in the name of Jesus. 2021 is going to be a year of restoration. I believe that with all my heart. Church, thank you so much. God bless you. We love you. Have an amazing 2021. God's favor is upon you.